at the Quantitative and Digital Law Lab in the Department of Mathematics at King's College London, and it is supported by the UK Research and Innovation Council. I will first present my team. So we are a group of theoretical physicists and one computer scientist. And from this image, I let you guess who is the computer scientist here. And we have two PhD students and my colleague Alessia. We are interested in the application of complexity science to problems at the interface between the legal world and the political science world. Actually, the work I'm presenting today was led by Yannick, one of my two very talented PhD students. So the research questions that we would like to address are two, essentially. The first one is about trying to quantify the complexity of a legal text, for example, the Act of Parliament, from the structural and informational point of view. And also to produce an analytically tractable model based on probabilistic and random features for the realistic process of locating information within a legal text. So the issue of legal complexity, of course, has a long history. There are there is a lot of literature from legal scholars and also from complexity scientists. I particularly like this passage, this excerpt from this paper by Gates, where they say legal scholars have not had an easy time defining complexity, and some have been disarmingly honest about this difficulty. One author admitted that he was tempted to define complexity by averring, "I know it when I read it." And this somehow underpins the general difficulty that we have when we try to assess and quantify complexity, not of legal text, not just from a qualitative point of view, but actually from a quantitative point of view. I just want to acknowledge first that of course many people have grappled with these issues before us, so we are not writing on a blank slate, and of course we have tried to do justice to the many contributions to this topic that have appeared in several areas of the legal and also complexity science literature. The paper, the preprint, will be out in about a week. I guess we are still finalizing it. So please, if you will then feel that your contribution has not been properly acknowledged, please write to me, and we will make sure that we correct this inadvertent oversight. Now, we have a first example that is a real example of a potential search for a legal question in the UK, and this is also an example that we put at the beginning of our narrative to just motivate what we are trying to do, and it is about overcrowding in private dwellings. So let's assume that you would like to find out the answer to a very specific question. What is the maximum number of people, essentially, that a UK landlord can let a property of a given size to without incurring in penalties? So faced with the legal question of this nature, a layperson would naturally resort to the official government, UK government website, legislation.gov.uk, where they may be tempted to try a certain number of keywords, for example, overcrowding. If we actually try this experiment yourself, you will see that you will not get any hit, and this will happen for a large number of trials of very reasonable keywords that you might try to get to the bottom of this question. But after a few futile attempts, you will eventually land on the correct page, more or less. So you will find the Housing Act 1985, which in itself has different incarnations and also some versions that belong to the devolved administrations. In the Housing Act 1985, at the carefully hidden within it, you will find the answer to the question. It is actually contained in part 10, titled overcrowding. There is a subpart which is called definition of overcrowding, and in Article 326, part 3, you will eventually find the information you are looking for. So the search process for a piece of information that you know must be there is in itself a source of complexity. And you can see already in this pictorial representation that it is possible to represent at least roughly the structure of the Housing Act as a tree, as a network with a tree structure, where the interested reader should follow a given path to locate a piece of information about which the reader only has some general knowledge about. Of course, if the reader knew the answer in advance, there wouldn't be any need for a search. But by this process of keyword matching, at the end we find our path to the solution. So this gave us the first idea for a model for the search of information in trees that are carrying information in each node. These trees, we call them legal trees. The idea is then to use a network model and randomness, so a process of random search, to try to investigate this process of reaching a piece of information that is hidden somewhere in the nodes of your tree. The first naive attempt would be to say, okay, we have like a random reader, this is like a random walker that is hopping through the nodes of this legal tree. And the zeroth order approximation would be to say, whenever the reader lands on a given node, he would choose one of the neighbors at random with uniform probability, and it would then hop there. Of course, this model, which is tantalizing, simple, and could certainly be analyzed analytically and in quite a few details, is unfortunately too simple and not realistic. We can safely agree on the fact that no reader in their right mind would explore all directions of a given legal text with the same probability, unless, of course, the legal text was really badly written, crafted. What can we do better? Well, we can modify this this model by assuming that there is some information on the nodes, located on the nodes of the network, that is somehow attracting or repelling this random reader, so that there is a higher probability that the reader would follow a certain path or a certain track than another. And if you think about it, this is more or less a quite realistic representation of how we as humans search for information in a given text. So faced with several possible alternatives on where to look, we will clearly be attracted towards the direction or the path, even if we don't know for sure that that is the correct one, because we don't know the end point. We have no information about what the end point is until we reach it. We will still be attracted more towards nodes that are carrying information that is closer to the sought information, to the target information, and we would not give as much consideration to nodes that look or that appear far away in some sort of informational or semantic space. So if we take this idea one step further, we face naturally the problem of assigning information, an informational content to the nodes that in turn informs the probability of hopping of our random reader from one node to another. And the idea is very simple, and we're certainly not the first to think about this. The idea is to define, imagine that there is a large glossary of terms that are more or less in the neighborhood of the semantic space or the semantic meaning of the target information. And to each node that in the language of legal drafting can be a part, a chapter, a paragraph, an article, and so on and so forth, we can assign a binary vector of size L, the number of terms in the glossary, such that the digit 1 means that the corresponding keyword is present in the node's header, and 0 means that the corresponding keyword is not present in the node's header. So if we follow this strategy, we can in some sense associate a binary informational vector to each node of our legal tree, and we have then to assign a rule by which the random reader will be somehow attracted towards the final information, but only using the local information that it has at the moment it hops or it stops at a given node. Of course, we cannot, we cannot use the fact that we cannot force the reader to be attracted to the final information, because we don't know, and the reader doesn't know where the final information is. If he did know, then the problem would be moot or irrelevant. We would already be there reading the solution or the answer. So there is this clash between locality and the fact that a well-drafted text should maintain a certain level of informational coherence across several dimensions, and I will be discussing this briefly later. I'm also skipping a lot of technical details because the mathematics here is a bit it can be a bit heavy and not particularly instructive either. So we formulated some principles for assigning these information bits to the nodes. First of all, we chose to work with a Markov process. A Markov process is a simple way which has some chances of being analytically tractable. So we imagine that we assign a certain random pattern to the root, and then we propagate this random pattern downwards throughout the tree according to some probabilistic rules that are essentially based on two principles, a principle of imitation and a principle of mutation. And the idea, which, well, of course, everything can be criticized, but we thought that a sensible idea would be to think about this process in the following way. We want the daughter and the parent node, so along a certain path downwards in the tree, not to be too different from each other in terms of informational content. This is a quite natural idea, because if the daughter and the parents in terms of informational content are too far apart, so if there is very little overlap between the two information contents, then probably the legal text has been drafted pretty badly, because it would mean that the daughter the daughter node should have been better placed somewhere else. On the other hand, the daughter and parent nodes cannot carry exactly the same content. So we need a mechanism to enforce some level of variety and difference in the way the information is propagated downwards. Nodes cannot be exactly equal, but nodes along the same downward path should carry some level of vertical coherence. Now, in order to enforce these two principles, we found it useful to parameterize this process according to two parameters, which we call tightness and overlap. Tightness refers exactly to this level of vertical coherence in the informational space. A less tight legal text is a text where there is quite a distance, there is quite a level of distance between the informational content of a node and its daughter or parent. So in the distance space, the edges are long. A tight legal text is a text where there is very little difference in the informational context along the parent-daughter axis. So in some sense, the level of knowledge that one gather by following the path downwards is incremental. You have an epsilon. You learn an epsilon more at each step you move downwards along a parent-daughter axis. The overlap instead refers to the horizontal coherence. So if you take, for example, the nodes that are sitting at the same level, for example, all chapters or all parts or all paragraphs, then you can measure a level of, you can measure this overlap or give a meaning to this overlap in the sense of how different two chapters are from each other. Two chapter headers are from each other, or two paragraphs or two parts. Is our legal text horizontally coherent? tight? Do we have a lot of overlaps in the keywords that pertain to each part at the same hierarchical level or not? Clearly, this may be a problem, because if we have a high overlap between nodes at the same level, our random reader will get more easily confused, because it wouldn't know at the very beginning, at the outset, which path is should it more likely follow to reach the target, because all paths look more or less equally likely to lead there. So we have devised like a two-step protocol. So first, we assign random informational patterns to the nodes of a tree according to this protocol I just briefly described, which involves these two parameters, tightness and overlaps. Second, a target is picked among the leaves, so the lowest level of the tree. So we imagine that the information that we want is sitting there. And then we take a snapshot of the legal tree that we have constructed. So we have the structure and the information that is planted on each node. On this snapshot, like a single instance, we let several instances of random readers run from the root, and we assign a probabilistic rule by which the reader will choose the direction to explore according to the information content of the node that is about to hop onto, and its relation with the target information. So we are trying to implement this idea that the reader would want to move more likely towards nodes that have a higher resemblance with the target information. So each random reader tries to locate the target information and stops as soon as the target information is found. So we have this hopping process, and as soon as the target information is found, the reader stops. The job is done. And then we collect the data on how many steps the readers take to reach the target. The main idea that we have here is that the structural complexity of the act or bill or legal text should be related to the average time standard reader takes to retrieve a certain piece of information. So here's the place where we contend that our model has a slightly different angle from all other ideas that we have seen in the literature, namely that we would like to estimate the complexity, the structural complexity of this piece of legal text by measuring how much time does an average reader take to retrieve a given piece of information. And the idea being that, of course, more complex text or worse drafted text are those for which this time is higher. We also have, I'm not sure if I can let it. So here we have a brief simulation. I'm not sure if you can see. I cannot hear you, so if you want to write in the chat, I monitor the chat. Okay, I can see that you can see. So we have a target here on which is in green below, and we have the red random reader, just one instance that is hopping through the nodes of the tree, and each node is carrying some information. So the process is not random in the sense of being equally likely. So the the red reader is not equally likely to explore every neighborhood, every node in its neighborhood, and you know, you can let it run. It almost did it, but it's on the wrong branch here, so he will need to go back and go down again from another branch before hitting the target. So this was just an idea of like a pictorial view of what an instance of a random walk of a random reader does in this context. And so our proxy for the complexity is then therefore the mean first passage time, which is defined. So the Tij is the time the reader takes to encounter J, the target, from starting from I, which is typically the root. And there are two different expectations that we can take. There is an expectation that we denote by E, the expectation over several readers, random readers that are starting from the root and trying to reach the target over a given snapshot, a given informational snapshot. And then we have a further average that we can take, which is an expectation over patterns. So over the distribution of patterns, which is in itself random and that is assigned to the nodes. And this object would be our proxy for the complexity of this random legal text. This problem is really hard to tackle analytically. But for an easier problem, we can make some progress. So we can compute the expectation over readers in the case for readers subject to average informational weights. So I will not get into the details, but the object that we can actually compute is essentially an approximation to the exact complexity that I'm defining, complexity benchmark or proxy that I'm defining here. The approximation is not so bad, luckily, as I will show you later. There are two technical ingredients that we used to make some analytical progress on this problem. So the calculation of this complexity indicator as the mean first passage time of random readers. The first one is the fact that mean first passage time satisfy on a strongly connected network, they satisfy a recurrence relation. And the idea is simple. If you want to compute the mean first passage time from the point I to the point J, what you can do is you do one step from I and you land on one of those L neighbors. And from the point L, where you've landed, you can start a mean first passage time process from L to J. So the mean first passage time from I to J is one step, plus the mean first passage time from L to J, weighted with the probability of landing to L from I. That's the basic starting point, which has a lot of interesting mathematical consequences. It is a very simple relation in which you split the search process in two parts. The first step, and then a mean first passage time process from the second step to the target. And here you use heavily the Markovian nature of the search. The second technical ingredient is an analytical progress that we achieved recently in our group, meaning that for structures that are trees or tree-likes, which share a certain geometry that we call necklace structure, we are able to find exact and approximate formulas for the mean first passage time. So we applied this general result to our setting, and we were able to make analytical progress. In the end, we have an exact expression for the this approximate complexity, which is quite horrible, but it actually fits in a quite tight Mathematica worksheet. So we can handle it, even if it looks quite horrible. But we have quite explicit expressions depending on the parameters, tightness, overlap, and the general topology of our tree. We have results from simulations in dots and results from our analytical formula. So as you can see, the analytical formula does not reproduce exactly the numerical simulation. There is always a shift because we are not computing exactly the same thing, but this shift is quite systematic. Yes, so I'm probably over time, but I just wanted to show you the fact that we have results about the complexity, and now the complexity scales with the different parameters. So we have a quantitative understanding of the process. Our theory underestimates the results, but in a quite systematic way. So it is not a bad approximation. So if we lift all the curves up by a bit, we are essentially in a very good position to analyze our data quantitatively. Limitations of our model, the tree-like assumption, the fact that tightness and overlaps of real legal networks are hard to measure in practice. So we need a protocol, an operational protocol to measure tightness and overlap on real empirical data. The analytical calculations are hard without such simplifying assumption. And the Markovianity, which is a key to make analytical progress. And this, of course, means that memory effects are out of the question. So whether the worker has already visited the site and will not go there again, this is very hard to implement. So this is a summary of what we have achieved, and I have already taken up too much of your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
So yeah, I'm not sure I can hear something. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Yes, not very well, but I'll try.
I think we have time for one question that's already in the chat. It's a question from Lin Hong. I'm not sure if you can see it in the chat.
Oh yeah, I think I can now see it. So how do you define legal questions, pieces of information that allow you to compare the complexity of legislation dealing with different matters? We cannot do that. I mean, it's just a very, I mean, we are doing a very simplified zeroth order model. The idea was just to try to have like a foray into this this matter with an analytically tractable framework. We are not claiming that this is the perfect solution. It's not nearly it's not even close to a perfect solution. So this is one of the many things that we cannot handle. So comparison between different texts it is part of the problem that tightness and overlaps, although I think we have an idea of what this means for empirical legal texts, these are difficult concepts to actually measure analytically. So so I'm not sure if this is if this is a killer for our this is a killer question for our model, but I I mean, I will not hide the fact that that there are many issues that are not resolved. It is just a first attempt.